Hi, I'm Jeremy Cooper, Head of IT and Security at Apollo Therapeutics. We're a small biotech organisation headquartered in Cambridge, and we work with world-class research organisations and then outsourced organisations to accelerate drug discovery. We're using it at a really basic level for some productivity and efficiency, the usual use cases of people. I need to write a policy, but I don't know where to start. So kind of getting that framework and the bits out of your head, it's like, or people are saying, if I need to communicate this message. So they're kind of asking very generic questions. And then we're starting to look at where we can use it for innovation within the industry. So how can we use it for research acceleration or looking at competitive analysis? And it's really interesting because we're a highly outsourced model where we have limited amount of people in-house, and then we partner with kind of world-class organizations. So we're then also going to them and saying, what are you doing about AI as well? So starting to, rather than build it ourselves or have to design what we want ourselves, working with them. So for example, we've got a contract research organization. Normally we'd be doing a lot of experiments in the labs with them to sort of look at different like chemistry compounds, or maybe it's like dosing ranges. And if they can do a certain amount of that through AI and closing down the gaps, then we can do a lot more targeted. So it's saving money on like the amount of assets we have to put through, and also that sort of time to market. So it's a real interesting use space. We struggle with it a little bit because a lot of AI, like true AI, not machine learning, is just black box. So everyone's like, this will make you better. It's like, okay, so we put this in, we got that out. What decision did it make? Or why did it make this decision? They're like, well, that's not the point of AI. So well, it kind of is, because I work with incredibly detailed and specific people. Yeah, anyone with like science, technology, engineering, and maths, they want to know the equation, like when you're at school and they want you to write it out on the sheet of paper. It's the same thing with our researchers. They want to know, how did you come to that conclusion? Just so they can kind of check the math on it. So that's where it's always going to be difficult for us to take kind of early stage modeling on. A lot of it is around that trust. So do we trust what we're putting in to what comes out is tested? Because we have very small data sets. And if you look at different therapeutic areas, if you've got a niche in a certain liver disease or cancer treatment, it's not like you've got this massive amount of data that you could feed in, that they could train it over, to kind of get 20 years worth of data really quickly. Because a lot of the stuff about drug discovery is it's new, it's novel, it's not been done before. How do you kind of get those indicators? So you have to start looking at where it's near to something else, so then you could start to make decisions. But I think the biggest thing for us is, being an incredibly lean organization, we leverage third parties extensively, is how do we improve our productivity? So the best thing with AI for me is, can you get me started on the road? Can you do some research for me to get me kind of 80% of the way there, so then I can look at those bits of information and then like do that last piece? Because that information gathering is usually the hardest, longest part, or you need to get lots of people mining away just to get that sort of first set. So I think that's where we can really start to leverage it. Yeah, our data, our intellectual property is our lifeblood. And there's the risk of, how's the data getting held? How's it getting used? So does some of it become publicly available, and then our intellectual property is either devalued or worthless? But also, it's really easy to feed it more information than what you think. So again, you kind of don't know what it's looking at. And I think a really good example is, I think Microsoft do Delve, and Delve allowed you to kind of see what other people in the organization were up to, as long as you had access. And the amount of times people used to go in that and see that suddenly you could see like the CEO's working on a board paper. It's like, well, I shouldn't have access to that board paper, but I know that he's working on it and somehow I can access it. And that's because maybe least privilege hasn't been set up properly, or you don't have these kind of gaps between people's data sets. So what you might end up doing is feeding it data that the model shouldn't have. So maybe it knows the answer before it's trying to work out sort of the how did it get there? So then it's cheating the process. And so it's kind of making sure that those bits are separated. So making sure you've got like the right security controls. But again, it's just, we can't afford to lose any data. And that's the scary bit. It's so easy to sign up with the wrong vendor, or them have especially if you use anything free. I think everyone sort of goes, oh, it's free, we won't put anything in it. And then someone just happens to drop a Word document in it and says, can you just analyze this? Well, that's just trained ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever under the free assumption that this is generic data and can go anywhere. So a lot of it's user education as well. Some of it's just having good conversations with users, just letting them understand it's, what's the implication of what they're doing, how are they making it, how are they making a decision. And I think it's important that all the AI models and stuff sort of declare that this is an AI answer. We had an interesting one. We looked at a service desk tool last year, and the guy was like, it's great, we've got this chatbot and it uses AI. And he goes, here's the example. So he asked the question, can I bring my dog to work? And the AI comes back with, yes, you can bring your dog to work. You just need to let HR know, it needs to be on a lead, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, that's cool, isn't it? I was like, yeah, that's cool. So he then fed it the, can you bring your dogs to work policy, PDF. And then it was like, you can't bring your dog to work unless it's a service dog or a therapy dog or whatever. And you need to get this approval, this approval. And the biggest problem there was when it didn't know the answer, it guessed the answer, but it said it like it knew. And I think that's really important, that you need to say, you either need to get a confidence score against it, like I'm 95% confident this is right, or it needs to say, I've kind of made this up as an example, I'm an AI robot. And then on the kind of, from the organizational side, I think there's kind of that new risk model that you need to have. So we look at corporate risks and things, you almost need to have an AI risk, where you almost need a team or a person that is trying to break your AI model. So it's trying to prove why it's wrong or it's making the wrong decisions. And that's not to say because it is making it, it's just you've got to play devil's advocate. So you've got to try and basically not break the system, but why might it be making that decision? Because it might be, again, it's all a black box. So it's making a decision for what it thinks is good data. And we've seen enough examples of models that have been fed, whether it's sort of materials about like Nazi party, or they've been fed about like how to spot a cancer, and it was because there was a white tape measure next to the photo and stuff like this. It's like you have to try and pull apart. And I think that's important to have that kind of risk and rigor model of, you almost want the biggest AI haters in your organization sat there trying to prove why it's wrong. I really hope that they can get self-driving cars to work really well. And what I want to have is that ability to like get in a car and it join the train around the M25, and then it just dips off and takes me to Heathrow or wherever I want to do. So you get that full sort of consistency. But I think within like technology and business, it's definitely around productivity and efficiency. There is all this cool stuff that we can do, and we can definitely change the world. But everyone's so busy that if we can start to leverage AI to get rid of all, like automate and do all the little busy jobs and do all that research and stuff like that, so we can work on business value and having a real impact, I think it's going to give so much time back to people that they don't feel like they end up having to burn themselves out, ending up with anxiety and stuff because there's so much pressure on them. They can focus on what's the business value, not I got 1,000 emails today. Now, it's like the whole, how long do people spend writing meeting minutes after a meeting when you could use Zoom or Teams or whatever to do like the Cliff Notes action items? And if it can send out and generate tasks and do all this, like you've saved one of the exec admins like hours out of there every single day. So they're not sitting there doing work at 8 o'clock at night. They can actually spend time with their families, and then everyone's less burnt out. So then the organization becomes more productive and it's a better working environment. And then you can be more innovative because you can look at the cool stuff, not like the busy work. So that's why I really hope that it has that biggest impact. But there's definitely use cases within research, automotive, all that sort of stuff, but actually just make people's lives easier. I think you can from an operations perspective. So if you look at maybe it's like ticket processing or how much time someone spent on, I don't know, manually reconciling emails. I think that's a really straightforward process to say that you spent £10,000 setting up this system. It's released this amount of time from the accountant's time, and we didn't need to get a new person. So you can draw a line really well there. I think it becomes more difficult unless you can push an entire service out and sort of say it. So when you're trying to do something clever around research and you're trying to get it to do early stage filtering, I think you'll get there eventually that sort of says, we used to do 50 of these experiments, now we do 5. But until you can get those really clean metrics, I think it's hard to do. So it's hard to sort of say we're more innovative now because of that. But if we can say we used to spend 6 months on this work and we used to do 1,000 experiments, now we spend 2 months on this and we do 20 experiments, we know what that cost model looks like. So I think that's it's having really clear use cases, but also very specific measurable outcomes in the first place. So I think when you just want it to be that extra clever person in the room, it's difficult because there's always that value of a human. So let's say you ask the AI model to do a load of research and normally you would have had an intern to do it. There may have been a cost saving on not paying the intern and bits, but actually you lose that intern would have been having good conversations off the back of it and driving some thought leadership. And then maybe you've worked out that person's a really good person when they finish their degree, that you want them to come back in-house. So there's some intrinsics you can't capture, but I think there's definitely areas to do it. Just trying to bring it in really slow. And there's a lot of change going on in our organization and generally in the world, I guess. So it's not trying to overwhelm people. So it's almost how do they, trying to work out how best to sort of say this. If I give you an iPhone, I don't have to give you a user manual, and people just start using Siri. So then it's sort of almost just presenting here's the guardrails. So we in your acceptable usage policy or however you want, and in a couple of sessions just talk about we want you to start using AI. There's no kind of expectation. Here's the guardrails. So no company data. Don't believe everything you read. Trust and verify. These sorts of basic frameworks. And then just let them play with the tool. And I think that sort of fear of change is what will hold a lot of people back. So if it's it's there and you can use it if you want to, and maybe try the AI in the Teams sort of post meeting. I think that's been a really good way to get people sort of using it without forcing them, and then sort of bring in little use cases. So we brought in a new quality management system, which is sort of a document management tracking for sort of regulated quality documents. And one of them is you can load a document in and then you can ask the AI, I need to do a quiz at the end of this. Can you generate the quiz? And it goes away and it just says here, how many quiz questions do you want? So I want 5. So then it basically reads the document and it comes up with 5 quiz questions. And it's those little things that's probably saved that person 20 minutes, half an hour, and has given them a nice little use case. So I think it's sort of saying it's there, use it if you want to, rather than sort of forcing someone into the model. Don't go to the company that says they've got an AI tool. What are you trying to solve? Because I think there's a lot of people that come with we've got an AI tool, what's your problem? And then they sort of try and shoehorn it in. Oh yeah, we could train the model to do that. We could do all this. I think it's looking to have a real simple use case that you can start to just bring it in, see if it works, see how the organization reacts. Because creative organizations versus scientific organizations versus engineering organizations are all going to have very different use cases, but they're also going to have very different people that are drawn towards those. I think if you have a creative organization and say, do you want to use AI, they're a lot more open to it, just because it might be I need a YouTube thumbnail and generate me 500, and then you can get some ideas. Whereas you can't really do that in engineering. Like, design me 500 houses and I'll choose which one I like. Although the floor plan might be an interesting one. So I think it's sort of picking those battles to go in, find your friendlies, and then have that real use case. And what we've looked at is, where's your biggest time drain? Where's your biggest frustration? Where are you having to do lots of Excel reconciliation? And then it's like, how do we fix it? Because it might not be, you might go in looking for AI, but you end up with, actually, we could just do an integration, or we could just do some machine learning or something. So it's go in with, what's your problem statement? How do we remove that? But don't just assume that it's AI. It's gonna enable a lot of people to spend more time on value add. So like that, getting rid of the noise, automating a lot of the tasks. But I think one of the things that we've looked at recently is kind of the threat insights. And obviously they're using AI to look at what's the patterns of stuff going on in your environment. But also, everyone is, so if you've got a hacker, they're not just using the code that they downloaded off the dark web. They just run it through an AI engine and say, look, I want it to do this, but I want it to be slightly different, so there isn't that fingerprint that everyone else has seen. And we're now looking at, well, how do you protect against something that the person that's using it against you doesn't even know what it is? And it's kind of unconscious incompetence. It's like you don't know about the stuff you don't know about. And I think there's that ability to kind of ask questions, almost to say, if you were going to attack us, how would you do it? And maybe if it comes up with like 50 scenarios, you might go, do you know what? I hadn't even thought about that one. Hadn't thought about that one. That's a new thing. And I think having like AI as that trusted advisor, that you, back to my earlier comment, trust but verify, that's just almost like having an external mentor or something that's just standing back outside your organization saying, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And I think that will really help people, because it's so easy to get caught in this is how we've always done it. This is the process we always follow. These are our three biggest risks, and they might not be. So I think it's almost like augmenting your organization, and then just letting people do the really cool stuff.